Good evening, everyone. We're going to hear another perspective from one of the other three candidates running for the Kootenai County Commissioner Seat 1 tonight, and that candidate is Marc Eberlein. And Marc's with us here tonight. So, Marc, why don't you take 1 minute and introduce yourself and tell us why you're running for office?
How are our children going to be able to live in this wonderful community that we have? It's virtually impossible for them to even a rental house is horrifically expensive. So those are some of the concerns that I have. Property taxes are just getting way out of hand. It's the budgets are getting really huge, and I don't see the purpose or the reason why. Previously, when I was a commissioner, we had the biggest budget we had was $90 million and change, and that was only 6 years ago. And today it's trending upwards at I think it's actually 12%. And so, how much bigger is the budget going to get? Are we going to have to go into foregone taxes at some point in time? And that's a big bad thing. I don't know if you were familiar with foregone taxes, but it's disastrous.
Well, thank you. There's definitely a lot on your mind and a lot that you're running to address, and appreciate you articulating those. We have a few questions for you tonight. We have 3, and we're going to give you 2 minutes for each one of these questions. The first question is going to be, name one thing the county commission could do to improve the quality of life here in Kootenai County, and explain how you would work to implement that.
Quality of life in Kootenai County, they could make property taxes lower if they so chose. But the commissioners really don't have too much to do in the realm of it's private property. And so we don't, in this nation, we don't, unlike Russia or other countries, we don't force people to do one thing or another. And it's freedom of property rights and such like that.
Okay. The second question we have for you, Marc, is, and again, you're going to have 2 minutes for this one too, is, a lot of people, when there's a primary election, see that there's more than one candidate from the same party running for a certain position, and oftentimes wonder, well, what, they're from the same party, and we're, a pretty close community. How different can they really be? And so the question I think we have for you is, what sets you apart? What makes you different from the other candidates running for Seat 1?
That's my strongest suit. I can hit the road running in day one. There's a lot of things that take place in budgets when you're creating them, and that's the primary function of a commissioner's task, and one that impacts the whole entire county for everything, for all the way from public safety to property taxes to airports, and there's a lot of things out there that can be impacted with it. And the knowledge that I've gained, Dan Green was we became friends. We used to be at each other's throats, and Dan Green was a genius when it came to budgeting, and I learned from him, and I learned a lot from Dan. And some people claim that he's not conservative, but he has his own way, and I was very happy to be able to work with him.
The last question we have for you is definitely something that is on the top of a lot of people's minds here in Kootenai County. It's the G word, growth. And growth is something that seems to, you hear a lot about. People complain about traffic getting across town, housing issues, other things. But if you're elected, how will you approach growth and the issues around growth, and how do you see that being managed long term here in Kootenai County?
Well, growth is a function of private industry. If they want to build something, they build it if it's appropriate. We need to be sure to do it in certain manners so that people aren't hurt, and I mean financially or physically hurt. And if cities and counties don't provide certain necessities, people can get hurt. And one of the things that I find is when a development comes to be, even if it's a good development, I believe that they should be putting up the infrastructure, not only the sidewalks and that type of stuff, but if growth is going to continue, then all of a sudden, who's going to pay for the fire halls? Who's going to pay for the schools? Because there's, typically the developers will give a piece of dirt to somebody to build a school on, or a fire department, or whatever. Well, shouldn't that be part of the need of that project? And I think that the developers need to pick up the tab.
Okay. Well, that's the last of our kind of specific questions. And to wrap things up, Mark, you're going to have 1 minute to give us a closing statement. Any final thoughts you have about the race or your candidacy? So take 60 seconds and go ahead and give us your closing statement.
Well, I would say that we need to have responsible stewardship of public funds. That's a big one. We need to have public safety that's adequate. We have fiscal responsibility. There's things that we can do to preserve the property tax dollars and keep them down. And we need to, if like the foregone tax that's a horrible thing. And if somebody makes a big mistake on a project, on a building project or whatever it may be, all of a sudden foregone taxes could come into play. And I don't know what the last commissioners have done for foregone taxes. They can claw it back, or they can forgive the whole thing. And those have disastrous consequences with foregone taxes. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your responses and for your time and for helping inform the voters of Kootenai County about the issues you stand for and the things you'd like to accomplish if elected. So thanks, Mark.
Thank you.